voters. 4 months and a few more days ago, a bomb, a metaphorical bomb, was dropped by 4 of the senior-most judges of our country. They had spoken up publicly about issues within the Supreme Court, the highest institution for justice in India. It shook us all up. Was everything not all right with that one institution that we all trusted the most? The issue turned political soon. The flashpoints increased. CJI maintained his silence. The government maintained its distance. But tonight, things have only gotten uglier. It doesn't matter tonight which side of the fence you're on. When the integrity of the Chief Justice of India is under attack, it is an unfortunate and it is an extremely depressing time. My intention is not to discuss the politics of it tonight. I don't want to do that. We have no politicians on our show tonight. My intention is not for any of us to pass a judgment on Justice Mishra or any of the other judges. Tonight, it's a different type of show. Tonight, we ask questions that India is wondering about. Will this dent judiciary's image? Was this essential or needless? Is the process of impeachment too complicated? Is it too political? Do we need a new mechanism to probe judges, to keep the judges under scanner? Before that, before we get into that conversations and seek answers to these questions, here are some of the biggest voices that we gathered today, the biggest story of the month.
We have moved a motion for impeachment for the removal of Chief Justice of India under 5 listed grounds of misbehavior.
Vice President now needs to appoint an inquiry committee of 3 judges in consultation with the number 2 judge of the Supreme Court, because obviously he can't consult the Chief Justice on an impeachment motion against himself.
ये जो सारा मामला है ये पॉलिटिकल है, कोई बुनियाद नहीं है। कल ही अभी जज लोया वाली पिटीशन डिसमिस हुई है और कानूनी तौर पे हुई है, और अगर उसमें सलमान खुर्शीद ने भी बल्कि बोला है कि अगर कोई प्रक्रिया तो कानूनी तौर पर हो सकती है, लेकिन किसी भी बात पर आंच उठाने की बात और उसके ऊपर इम्पीचमेंट मोशन करना और वो भी जुडिशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन को अंडरराइट करना बहुत गलत लगता है।
The judiciary should sort out these problems itself. Don't allow politicians to get in. Once that happens, we are on a very slippery slope.
They are trying to frighten the Chief Justice. He's not going to be frightened. If there was any chance of his being frightened, it would have been now.
They are trying to bring case of impeachment motion against the Chief Justice, which also is exposing the bankruptcy of the opposition.
Let's say good evening to our guest this evening. Justice S.N. Dhingra, former Justice of the Delhi High Court, is with us tonight. I've also got Biswajit Bhattacharya, former Additional Solicitor General, with us. We'll also be having Justice Saldana, former Judge of the Bombay High Court, Raju Ramachandran, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court and a former ASG. And also we're hoping to have a conversation with Pinky Anand, Additional Solicitor General of the Supreme Court right now. Let me come to Justice Dhingra first and ask him this question. Justice Dhingra, what has happened today? Is this going to dent the image of the judiciary? Is it something which was essential or needless?
I have not heard your question very clearly. Please, can you repeat it?
What has happened today, Justice Dhingra, the impeachment motion, do you think this was necessary?
Not at all. You see, there is no material. There is no material with those who have moved this motion. See, there are 5 charges. First charge is that why Chief Justice constituted benches in a way that Loya's case was not assigned to senior judges. This charge fails because there are no senior junior judges in Supreme Court, all are equal. They are all experienced and they are elevated to Supreme Court after a long number of years of service, either as advocate or as judges of High Court or this. So everybody is competent to decide any case. Second charge is about non-registration of FIR against a judge of Odisha because Chief Justice did not order registration of FIR. See, there is protection given to the judges as given to the bureaucrats and other members of the executive, that no case can be registered against them unless the senior officers or appointing authority first verifies and goes through that and finds that it is worth registering a case and accusations are not motivated. You see, their motivated accusations are always there to discredit the judges. So if the Chief Justice in his discretion has found that it was not worth registering an FIR, this cannot be a ground for impeachment motion at all. This is not a misconduct. See, third is, you see, about setting aside the order of procedure which was passed by the administrative side of the Supreme Court by bench of the Supreme Court. This is a known fact that the appeals are filed against administrative side to the judicial side. Day in and day out, the advocates are filing these kind of appeal that administrative side has gone wrong, please set it right, and they file appeals against this. Now, if this has been set aside by a bench of the Supreme Court, I don't find there is any misconduct. You may not like it, but your like or dislike does not constitute misconduct. So the charges which have been levied, they are, I don't say they are charges, they are accusations. You don't like the working or functioning of a judge, you start pressure tactics, you start threatening. In fact, these kind of charges can be levied against any Chief Justice.
Yes.
Any Supreme Court judge. And they are all open to impeachment.
And then that's a very dangerous precedent that we are setting.
You see, discrediting the judiciary.
Yes, Justice Dhingra, I'm just interrupting you there because we're having a bit of a problem with the feed with you, and so we're unable to catch everything that you're saying. So until that gets fixed, let me take that point that you made to our other guests, and let me go across to Mr. Bishwajit Bhattacharya and ask him this question. The issue that he raised about the grounds, what do the rules say? Should there be convincing proof of misbehavior, proven misbehavior, or should there just be suspicions, and is that enough? Because what we are talking about effectively, we are saying that bring him down. The Chief Justice of India doesn't deserve to be Chief Justice of India and he must be removed. That's a big ask, Mr. Bhattacharya.
You see, under Article 124, subclause 4 of the Constitution of India, this political cum constitutional process has already been initiated. Prove misbehavior or incapacity. Now, there is no allegation of incapacity. There is an allegation of misbehavior. Now, this has to be proved or disproved in accordance with the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968, which has been framed in furtherance of Article 124, subclause 5 of the Constitution of India. Once the Honorable Vice President accepts this motion, then his second option is to constitute an inquiry committee comprising of a senior judge of the Supreme Court, a judge of the High Court, and an eminent jurist. then this committee will go into the question of each and every charge which Justice Dhingra mentioned. It is for the committee to prove or disprove those charges. And then after that, if the charges are proved, then the next step is to take the matter to the both houses of Parliament, and the constitutional process is that the majority of the members of the Parliament, and out of which 2/3 present and voting, now both the houses will then refer the matter to the President, and then only then a Supreme Court judge, including a Chief Justice, can be removed. Now what the point which I am trying to make is that today it is not for us to debate the veracity or otherwise of the charges. This is a political process initiated by some political parties. I personally feel that as far as the independence of the judiciary is concerned, all political parties are united to attack the judiciary. Can I make one more point?
Sure.
You see, when the National Judicial Appointments Commission, when the constitutional amendment was brought out by the Parliament unanimously, all the political parties joined hand to checkmate the judiciary. So I am not surprised that the institution of Chief Justice and the institution of judiciary is being attacked by any political party. And I don't think whether it is BJP or Congress or any other party, they are exceptions. All are the same. Given a chance, everybody will attack the integrity of the judiciary by sidetracking the major issues. Now we have to, you see, before the public domain, 5 charges have come. The entire country is watching your show and the television show. So, you know, you have to basically get out of it, because this process has been initiated. And if the Honorable the Vice President does not accept the motion, then the matter ends there. But then again, the decision of the Honorable the Vice President not admitting the motion again is amenable to the judicial review under the writ jurisdiction. So this matter is not that simple, and I don't think this matter can be given anything but a political color, because after all, Article 124 entire process is constitution come political.
Yes, no, you know, the idea tonight, Mr. Bhattacharya, is to talk exactly about that. And I began this show by saying, for our guests who are also joining us now, that I do not want to sit here and cast aspersions or pass any judgments on the Chief Justice of India or any other judges. But I do want to talk about the process, and I do want to talk about the integrity of the judiciary. So let's talk about the process, and let me go across to Mr. Raju Ramachandran, because he has experience when it comes to process. I just want to explain to our viewers. Step 1 is when our elected representatives find enough number of votes and MP signatures to move the motion, which is what has happened today. They've got 64 MPs to sign that letter for the impeachment motion. Step 2 is that the chairman of the upper house or the vice president of our country approves it and accepts it. Step 3 is that a committee is set up. And Mr. Raju Ramachandran was actually advising one of these committees that had been set up for a previous impeachment motion. This committee investigates the charges that have been put in. Step 4 is that the houses, upper house and lower house, go to vote. Now 50% of the house must vote. In that, 2/3 majority must pass the resolution. Then it goes to the president. Mr. Ramachandran, is the whole process way too complicated and politicized for what is really at heart of the issue?
It is wrong to use the word politicized because, as Bishwajit has already explained to you, the Constitution makes the process political. It is definitely a long and arduous process which has enough protection for the judge. Please remember that the Constitution gives the right to the elected representatives to move for impeachment. Now, of course, the person who is under the scanner for impeachment suffers. But this is the constitutional process. But first, the chairman applies his mind. He may reject the motion, which can, of course, be challenged in court. But if he accepts the motion, a judicial procedure is followed under the Judges Inquiry Act, where the judge is given a full opportunity to defend himself. If he is found not guilty, that is the end of the process.
Yeah.
If he is found guilty, then, as has already been explained, it is still an arduous process before Parliament, because more than half have to be present and voting of both houses, and then a 2/3 majority. And then the Supreme Court has held that even after removal, has the remedy of judicial review. Now, in the present context, without going into the merits of the charges, nothing is likely to fructify before the retirement of the Chief Justice, because even if the motion is admitted, the committee will take its time to inquire into the matter. The parliamentary process is long. The Chief Justice retires in October. But since this is a political process and there is no other process for removal of a judge, and also one more important point needs to be made. If this had been any other judge, then the Chief Justice of India had the power to constitute an in-house inquiry. The matter may not have come to Parliament at all. But what happens when an allegation is against the Chief Justice?
Yes.
Then he doesn't constitute an inquiry, in-house inquiry into himself.
Yes.
This is a peculiar feature of the present case.
No,
And therefore, that's another reason, because if you read the first charge, it only says it needs to be inquired into. Why does it need to be inquired into? Because there is no other forum before which it could have been inquired into, because in-house procedure is not available. Please, I hope I have made myself clear on this.
You have, and in fact, you've hit
Without
the nail
going
on
into
its
the
head,
merits of the controversy.
Mr. Ramachandran, because I actually wanted to ask all of you experts here if there is a need for an alternative mechanism when it comes to investigating judges. If you see all of the instances where impeachment motions have been moved, be it recommended by the courts and the judges, the judiciary themselves, or be it by any political party.
That's right.
None of them have actually gone through, except one where they voted against it. But Mr. Mohan Parasaran, good evening, sir, and thank you for speaking to us. In several of the past cases, we've seen that the judge in question has stepped down before the proceedings have even come to an end. Do you think the CJI should do that tonight?
I don't think so, because you would have seen the reaction of one of the 4 judges, Justice Chalameshwar. He himself pointed out that impeachment is not the remedy when he was speaking at the Harvard Club. And this is a matter which requires inquiry, and this is not a gross case like many other cases, where it was an open and shut case. And this requires a detailed inquiry, and therefore, I think one may even say that even going by the very first allegation, it is only an assumption. Therefore, I think in my personal opinion, I think you can't actually render the office of Chief Justice so vulnerable. I'm not on the individuals.
Yes.
But you can't render the officers so vulnerable, because we'll have to protect the institutions for posterity. It is not Justice Deepak Mishra. Tomorrow it can be any X, Y or Z. Therefore,
but Mr.
I don't think
you say,
he should go on leave.
Mr. Paraswaran, you say that it shouldn't be done in a hurry. There must be an inquiry. There will be an inquiry if the motion does get accepted. And since the time the CJI has taken over, there have been numerous instances where people have questioned the appointment itself, to the point when the judges came out, four of the biggest, senior-most judges revolted and spoke about it. You rightly mentioned that just the end of March, Justice Chelameshwar did come out and say, I do not know why the nation is obsessed with impeachment. Impeachment cannot be an answer to everything. There have to be other mechanisms in place to deal with it. But my point is that there have been questions that were raised when the appointment took place, and four judges came out and spoke about issues within the judiciary. The political parties at that point itself started talking about impeachment, started moving towards it. Last month, that entire thought process picked up pace. Congress has admitted that they have been collecting signatures for 3 weeks. Do you still believe it was rushed, Mr. Paraswaran?
No, I don't think it was rushed. See, they have been doing this exercise. I think people like Mr. Kapil Sibal, I think would not have acted in a haste. And he was actually making measured statements from time to time. In fact, he also had occasion to speak to me. Let me be frank. And I also had to express my opinion on the subject. But since Mr. Chelameshwar spoke, I thought we had to tread very carefully on this subject, because this should not be treated as a precedent. As Mr. Raju Ramachandran was saying, even assuming if the Vice President admits the motion, nothing is going to fructify till his retirement. And in a given situation where the Vice President refuses to admit the motion, then that will be the subject matter of challenge before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is soon going to have summer vacation. This matter is again not going to be resolved for some more time, and there will be a lot of intriguing questions concerning parliamentary privilege, whether this writ petition challenging the Vice President's order is maintainable at all. Will be argued nicely by jurists, and we will be leading nowhere. No, it will be a waste of country's time. The institution will be tarnished. Do we require all this at this juncture? This is my question.
Do we require all this at this juncture? A very important point, just highlighting it to our viewers. The Chief Justice of India would probably retire even before this process is halfway through, if it does get accepted by the Vice President of India. You can see what this really means. It's more about the optics, it's more about politics right now than maybe actually seeing some kind of concrete action. Justice Aldana, that question to you as well. Was there any other way of resolving whatever issues that are there in the Supreme Court today?
Tanvi, you are quite right. I myself am very sad that this has happened, and my initial reaction was that it could have been deferred a little, that it was avoidable. But the real issue is not that. We've got to ask ourselves this one very difficult question as to, was there any other option? What happened a few weeks ago has never happened in this country, it's never happened anywhere in the world, that the 4 of the senior most judges, it wasn't a question of just one judge who was unhappy or disgruntled. They came out with something very solid, and let's not go into the nitty-gritty. The fact of the matter was this, that they said there are serious issues which require reformative action at the level of the Supreme Court, the working, and these are time-bound issues. It should have been done immediately. Unfortunately, what has happened? Weeks have passed. and there will be no change, no reform, no nothing. On the contrary, I just don't know, because we are back to square one. A few days back, when somebody went with the PIL, saying that please formulate some guidelines, or please think of some norms whereby all these grievances could be redressed. The simple answer was that we are back to square one, saying that the Chief Justice is master of the rolls. Nobody can question what he does.
Yes.
So what is the end result of all this? Now, even in the Judge Loya case, I don't want to go into any debates because the Supreme Court has passed final orders on it. But I was just asking lots of others, because my personal reaction was that where the whole country is disturbed and upset over a matter of this type, maybe the Supreme Court itself, now there is an application made in the Supreme Court that please don't accept any of this material unless it is tested, irrespective of whether it is a judge's statement or irrespective of whether it is a post-mortem report. Please test it. Now even that was not done. So see, according to me, we are going back right to the position which is why the 4 judges came out. And if there is total refusal, then what other option is there? That's my view.
Okay, let me take that point to Pinky Anand, additional Solicitor General, joining us this evening. Thank you, Pinky Anand, for speaking with us as well. Do you believe that in the past 4 months since the judges' revolt, not much was done in reaction to that, which is why we are where we are tonight? Are the two connected? Pinky Anand, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for speaking with the Mirror Now. My question to you, Pinky Anand, was, do you believe that since the January 12th news briefing by the 4 judges of Supreme Court, not much has been done to resolve the issue, that there were still issues that continued within the Supreme Court, that has brought us to the point where we are tonight, or have some people just taken advantage of what happened that day and used it for some political brownie points?
I think the answer is very clear, Tanvi. The position is that what has happened and it has been resolved, that is another matter. But the principle of the situation today seems to be that politics seems to have taken over, and political advantage is being sought by utilizing this entire episodes which have been going on to make it a process where impeachment has been sought, and it is totally misfounded and very unfortunate, because I don't think we should have come to this state of affairs in any manner, and not for the institution of justice, which stands strong. This, I am afraid, is going to be very bad for the system.
What alternatives were there, Pinky Anand? Because we've seen a series of flashpoints that have taken place with senior most of the judges have spoken. Some serious issues have been raised. Was there another alternative to the situation that was staring at the judiciary system?
I mean, what kind of issues are we talking about? Are we talking about a judgment which came yesterday? No. I think it is a very clearly established proposition that the Supreme Court will give a judgment, and if you can't really have any gravamen against that kind of a judgment given by the Supreme Court, and if you have, you can take your remedies in accordance with law. As far as the roster is concerned, the roster is fixed by the Chief Justice, and that is a matter of practice that has been going on for a considerable period of time. Are we saying that a few lawyers who raise some issues, that those issues must be addressed in the manner that they desire, failing which there will be an impeachment motion against a judge of the Supreme Court? I mean, these are the questions that I think answer themselves. We don't need to give any further answers. It can't be the way that anybody wants the system to run. The system runs in a certain fashion, and I don't think any ground whatsoever has been made out to go for this movement, excepting for political advantage.
If you will allow me this, may I just take that question to a few of our panelists, and I don't, if Justice Dhingra can hear me, Justice Dhingra,
Thank you, Tanvi. I need to go, so
Okay, then
excuse me.
Yes, then I have just one more question for you, ma'am. There are 5 charges that were put forward in the letter that has been submitted to the Vice President. What is your own view about the grounds that Congress and the others have used to move this motion?
I don't think any of them makes out any ground for the impeachment motion. We have a constitutional provision. You have certain requirements which must be met. In particular, that there has to be either proven misconduct or there has to be incapacity. None of those are fulfilled in the present case on either of the 5 grounds as stated in the application. So I think it is not going to go very far.
Thank you so much, Pinky Anand. I know you just traveled back to Delhi and we didn't give you much time. So thank you for taking this time out and speaking with us. I'm going to take that point across to Mr. Mohan Parasran as well. These are the 5 charges broadly. The Chief Justice's role in the Prasad Education Trust case. In the same case, conflict of interest and how he handled the case. Charge number 3 is about his link to the backdating of a writ petition that was filed in November 2017, was taken up by another bench and then later by Chief Justice. Charge number 4, allegedly gave a false land-related affidavit as an advocate when he was an advocate. And charge number 5, abuse of power in allocating cases to Supreme Court benches. Mr. Parasran, are these grounds, do these grounds merit impeachment of the Chief Justice of our country?
See, there can be arguments and arguments, no? And we can't actually say, because one pertains to some land allotment when he was in Orissa. The first 2 pertains to the Prasad Medical College. And again, it's very difficult to find his direct involvement. Allotment of cases, he is the master of the rolls. Where is the favoritism and nepotism, no? I'm not able to see. Something must be apparent on the face of the record. Like in some cases where judges resigned before the motion was taken, no? Where people went and saw the lands which were illegally occupied by a judge concerned. Or some judge had done factually a misdemeanor. But here, of course, the allegations are quite serious. But can you say that these allegations are actually unsupported, or on the face of it can't be demolished by any other circumstances? It is so bad, per se actually liable to be believed.
Yes.
Therefore, what I mean to say is, at best, maybe they might have made a not even a strong prima facie case. At best, since they are parliamentarians and as we discussed, it's a political process. You start a process of inquiry. But my main question is, what is the purpose of the inquiry? Are you going to achieve the main object by October?
No, you won't.
If you are not going to achieve the main object by October,
yes,
what is all this?
They can't even get the House to function for a single day.
That's what I'm again coming to.
Let alone for a thing like that. This is an opposition that has tried to move a no confidence motion against the government, and now clearly a no confidence motion against the CJI. And they won't even allow the House to function for one single day. So I don't know what it is that they want to achieve with this kind of an attack that they have carried out. I want to take that point, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Ultimately,
can I take that point across to Justice Saldana?
Former Solicitor General. See,
Mr. Parasran, if you will just allow me this, those 2 points that you've raised. Point number 1 is about the process, and point number 2 is about The roster, you know, who's the master of the roster seems to be the biggest question here, viewers. What we are really saying is who gets to decide? Is it only the Chief Justice of India who decides which judge takes up which case in Supreme Court? And if he begins to then prefer certain judges for certain type of cases, like has been alleged, is that a problem? Or if he is the master of the roster and it is his decision, then can you really cry foul about it? This is what the 4 judges in January when they came out said. And I want to quote, "There have been instances where cases having far-reaching consequences for the nation and the institution have been assigned by the Chief Justices of this court selectively to benches of their preference without any rational basis for such assignment. This must be guarded at all costs." Now, I must also point out that there has been a system that has now been put in place, subject-wise, for each of the 5 senior-most judges who will handle which subject cases has been put out. Justice Saldanha, if this has always been the rule that the Chief Justice decides, has there always been some friction amongst the senior-most judges, or is this a problem that the judiciary is facing for the first time?
Tanvi, my view of the matter is that this is an age-old problem, and I personally think that the objective of the 4 judges in having come out was very constructive, in the sense that they expected that some far-reaching reform and some change in administration would take place. Now, unfortunately, that has not happened, and the indications that were given was that we will not do it. Now, that is probably what has triggered off the further. But please look at it this way, that it is a core issue. It's a very serious matter, because I have said this earlier also, that when there was so much of controversy, there's a set principle. I've been in the judiciary for 16 years. And if there is some big controversy with regard to a case, don't take it up, because then sometimes the wrong impressions are created. What is the interest of Justice Saldanha in insisting that he must take up the case? Now, this lawyer case, it could have gone to any other bench. There's no problem about it. But after all that controversy, to say that no, we will still hear it, and then there's a lot of heartburn now with regard to the outcome. So you can't say that there's absolutely no cause for this having been done.
Right.
I'm not happy about it. I'll still repeat it. I'm not happy about it. I felt it was avoidable, and my view of the matter is that it is still correctable. I think even at this stage, if corrective action is taken, there's no need to go through all this lengthy procedure. Now, the fact that, you see, there is the time factor involved and all that, that does not wash out these aspects.
Yes.
But do we want the state of affairs to continue? That is the moot point.
Okay, that is a very valid point.
And I think that's what we've got to do.
So let's talk about that, and Mr. Ramachandran, to you, and then to Mr. Bhattacharya. Is there an alternative mechanism that the judicial system, that the judiciary needs right now to resolve issues pertaining to judges acting in a specific unethical or biased manner, or further serious charges? Because in this system, there's a lot of politicking, public mudslinging, and it's a long, complicated process, Mr. Ramachandran. Should we be looking at another mechanism?
Tanvi, an alternative institutional mechanism is available in the case of all judges except the Chief Justice of India. You have had in-house inquiries in so many situations which go into the allegations first and see merit or no merit in those allegations. But, as I said earlier also, if there is an allegation against the Chief Justice of India, other institutional mechanisms fail. Now, these very 5 charges, You take the third charge, which is backdating an order. This is a serious charge, whether it is a charge against a lower division clerk or against the Chief Justice of India. If there was such an allegation against some other judge, this would have been inquired into by that alternative institutional mechanism.
Yeah.
But here, since the allegation is against the Chief Justice of India, unfortunately, this is the only forum. And I'm just giving you the example of this one allegation.
So what does one do then, Mr. Bhattacharya, when it comes to the Chief Justice's office? Because if what is happening tonight happens, surely that is bound to dent the image of judiciary, put doubts in people's minds about the way our judiciary and the highest office functions.
Tanvi, as my good friend Mohan has stated, charges are serious in nature. Charges are serious in nature, right or wrong. Now the Vice President will have to look into it. Secondly, the institution of judiciary, the image has already been dented in the past few months, and I think when the 4 senior honorable judges were constrained to hold that press conference, it was not, in my perception, an attack on the Chief Justice of India. I think the 4 honorable judges were raising an issue, a larger issue, faced with a fait accompli that 50 members of Rajya Sabha have signed a petition. It has reached Honorable Venkaiah Naidu, a very, very illustrious and well-known politician. He will have to take a view on this, mind you. He will have to take a view on this, and I am perhaps repeating it. If he finds that prima facie there is no charge, it's not worth going into, he will drop the matter. But the matter does not end there, because as both my friends have already stated, I had also stated earlier that the decision of the Vice President of India declining to entertain the motion will be amenable to writ jurisdiction of the Supreme Court under Article 32 of the Constitution of India. So we are already in a very, very critical situation where the institutional integrity will have to be protected, and because the image has to be protected, common man's faith in the judiciary will have to be protected. Now, when such 5 charges come in the public domain, I think it is best, in the interest of all concerned, everything should be taken to its logical conclusion transparently at the earliest possible manner. But I have one very grave apprehension in my mind. I think those political parties who have moved the motion, they know, I think, very well that ultimately they don't have the numbers. Proved misbehavior will have to be proved, which is a far cry. And after that, in the end, majority of the members of parliament will have to be agree, and then 2/3 present and voting. Do they have the numbers? So there are 2 hurdles staring in the way.
So
One is the time factor, and the second is the number factor. Now, knowing all these things, I think perhaps discretion would have been to wait, as Justice Saldana stated.
But like you said,
to
Mr.
trigger the
Bhattacharya,
situation at this juncture.
But like you said, the charges are grave, and we're not saying whether that is indeed true or not.
That is
but
serious.
It
Like my friend Mohan also said,
investigation.
you see, antedating, you see, backdating, and as you say, whether it is by a lower division clerk, backdating, and you know, and these charges, like, you know, he had some plot of land when he was an advocate, to raise it now is a little unfair. But it may be unfair, but nonetheless, since this has come out in the public domain, I think in the interest of the institution of the Chief Justice of India, the names are not material here. The institutional integrity will have to be protected at all costs, and we, the members of the bar, have an overriding responsibility to protect the majesty, sanctity and integrity of the highest court of the land, because we cannot allow, you know, politicians to, you know, defame an institution. And when I say politician, I mean
unfortunately, Mr. Bhattacharya, the way this system is right now, as we see it and as India will now understand, it seems to be very easy for politicians to get 55 signatures and then start this entire, you know, process which is there, where there is an investigation and much is said publicly about the Chief Justice of India. But Mr. Parasaran, my question is something else now.
Can I just add?
Yes, please,
Can
go
I
ahead.
just add one?
Yes.
If you don't.
Tanvi, can I please leave? Tanvi, can I please leave? I have to go
politicians,
somewhere. Tanvi, please let me go.
Yes, Mr. Ramachandran, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Including the politicians ruling.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bhattacharya. We couldn't hear you there because Mr. Ramachandran wanted to leave. Go ahead, please. Finish your point.
So when I said that politicians, it includes every political party. The moment they get an opportunity, they try to checkmate the judiciary. That I have experienced in the National Judicial Appointments Commission case, when every political party joined hands, the Congress, the BJP, to checkmate the judiciary, to try and curb the independence of the judiciary. That judgment is still not been implemented. 16th October, today we are on 20th of April, almost 2.5 years, after 2.5 years. So many vacancies are lying in various Supreme Courts.
Yes.
Who is responsible for that?
That is another big problem, and I think we will keep that topic, Mr. Bhattacharya, for another day, because it's a big issue, I think, and much has been said even by the senior-most judges about the vacancies and the delay in the appointments. I have completely run out of time here, so I'm going to thank all three of you panelists and those who had joined us earlier. It's literally been a pleasure today to have all of you, a break from our regular political bickering, but to pick the top legal minds of this country to try and understand this historic development. Never before in our country, viewers, have we seen fingers being raised at the highest office, even though the Chief Justice of India is first among equals. Fingers being raised at the Chief Justice of India in our country. We have never seen that happen in such a way where an impeachment motion has been moved. Now, I want to remind you just exactly what judiciary has come to mean in our country in just the recent times. It is the same Supreme Court that reinstated our faith in justice when they gave us a right to privacy just last year. It is the same Supreme Court that reinstated our faith in gender equality and rights for women when it struck down the practice of instant triple talaq. It is the same Supreme Court that has repeatedly taken steps to protect our environment, even if it meant steps like banning fireworks around Diwali, to ensure that our environment is protected and our kids have a cleaner air to breathe. It is the same Supreme Court that has sent tough messages to Kap Panchayats on honor killings. It is the same Supreme Court that has reinstated dignity for women like Havya across the country who have chosen to marry out of their choice irrespective of religion and were targeted for that. It is the same Supreme Court that has recognized the third gender. It is the same Supreme Court that has banned the Lal Batti culture. All of these things our governments of the day, our political parties could have done. But when there was no other option, citizens of this country went to the top court for justice and they were not left disappointed. So it pains tonight to see just what is going on. And if indeed there is rot in the system, if indeed something has gone wrong, we can only hope that it gets fixed rather than political parties playing to the gallery, raising the rhetoric and hoping to get some browning points. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.